Mr. Cook here on Capitol Hill. Senator Elizabeth Warren, the Democrat from Massachusetts, talk about her new legislation, the Truth in Settlements bill, and she's here to tell us more about it. Thank you, first of all, for the time. This legislation, is this an indictment of sorts on federal prosecutors, federal regulators right now, that they've been too soft when going after corporate wrongdoers?
Well, you remember, I asked the question last year from some of these banking regulators, when was the last time you took one of the big financial institutions to trial? And they hemmed and hawed and had some trouble coming up with an answer, but they said, hey, the settlements are great. They are a great deal for the American public. So my view, along with Senator Coburn, is if they're a great deal, then put them out there, hang them out there for everybody to see, make them public so we can see them and evaluate them. In other words, a little transparency in these settlements and a little accountability for the agencies that are doing them.
Was there one case in particular, one settlement in particular that really inspired you to draw up this legislation?
You know, there are many, but I'll give you one example. You remember the whole mortgage foreclosure scandal where these companies had just blatantly broken the law. One of the announced settlements was for $8.5 billion. Now, that's a big headline. Then it turned out, well, $5.2 billion was for credits that the companies were going to get. So how do you earn a credit? Well, it turned out that they could forgive $10,000, let's say, on a $500,000 mortgage, and guess how much credit they got? $500,000. That meant that
this legislation would make that abundantly clear.
This would make it abundantly clear, and I hope would make anyone engaged in those negotiations think twice before they did that.
Well, let me ask you, is your goal here to make the government enter fewer settlements with corporate wrongdoers? Do you want to send government lawyers basically into the courtroom because there's a risk there that they lose?
Look, I want to make it clear that the government lawyers work for us. They work for the public. They don't work for the companies that they're supposed to be regulating. And so this is really and truly about transparency. It's about good government. If your best judgment on behalf of the American people is that it should be a settlement in this case, then by golly, make the terms public so we can all evaluate it and see if we think it's such a great deal.
There have been some pretty high-profile settlements, for example, with J.P. Morgan in the last few weeks, multiple settlements, in fact. How would your legislation treat those differently, if you know at this point? Would we have a different outcome than some of the high-dollar numbers we've seen?
Well, you know, the key point on the settlements is making them public. And I'm very glad to see the J.P. Morgan Chase settlements, for example, have recently been made public. And, for example, they have addressed the question head-on, will this settlement, the amount that you pay, the fines that you pay, will it be tax-deductible or not tax-deductible? Because, again, before what was happening is the government and the company would announce this big number, but then the company would deduct it on their taxes, and the American taxpayer was picking up part of the tab. So this one goes back. This is why I think Senator Coburn and I are working so hard together on this. This is a basic good government. This is about transparency. Just make the terms of the deal clear. If you're so proud of what you negotiated, you should want the American people to know what you've done.
You've got Senator Coburn, a conservative Republican, co-sponsoring this legislation with you. What's the outlook for a bill like this in the U.S. Senate right now? Do you have any commitment from Harry Reid that he might bring this to the floor?
So Senator Coburn and I have just started, and our next step is we're going to start gathering co-authors, co-sponsors on this. But I got to tell you, I feel good about this one. I mean, come on. Who really wants to keep this stuff secret, or who wants to admit publicly that they want to keep it secret?
The cost-benefit analysis, you're confident at the end of the day that this is going to be worth it. Again, there is the risk that you're going to send government lawyers into court, and they're not going to be as well-equipped as the corporate lawyers they're going against, and they're going to lose some of these cases.
Hey, listen, I got to put it this way. If the only kind of deal you could cut is one that you're not proud of and that you're not willing to let the American people know about, the American people are the ones you work for. If you aren't proud of that deal, then don't cut it.